Hello and welcome to our Insights podcast, sponsored by Value Edge Group. I'm Leon Herszon, your host. And once again, I have the pleasure to have with me Max Langosco. He's an expert on project program portfolio management and also how to use AI to help us on that journey. Welcome, Max.
Thank you, Leon. Great to be here with you.
All right, so I said again because I had a chat with Max, I would say almost a year ago. I think we had a nice chat, and it's always nice to catch up on a previous podcast, right? And I would like to start with you asking about the role of the project manager, right? How you see the role of the project management evolving, especially when we are talking about 1 year after our last conversation, right? How is the role of the project manager changing based on what we are seeing in today's world?
Well, that's a very broad question, Leon. The project management is constantly in evolution, right? So if you look back to the middle of the last century, project managers were very different from what they are today. The basic objective stays the same, deliver a result. But what deliver a result means has changed a lot. The way in which we do it, the challenges that we face, the tools that we have available, right? All these evolve, change, and therefore also the project manager's skill sets need to adapt. The project manager's value structure needs to adapt. So project management as a profession is constantly in evolution in this sense. And if you, which don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that the famous split between predictive and agile and stuff like that, right? That's not the point. It's not that whatever, we used to be predictive and now we have to be agile. That's nonsense. The both predictive and agile approaches have existed as long as projects have existed, and that is probably longer than humanity has existed, right? So great apes also work in adaptive approaches, right? So
in hybrid as well, the mix of those
two,
right?
Absolutely, right? They do what they got to do, right? And so that's not what evolves. What evolves is how we approach these issues. And with what degree of subtlety are we able to deal with these issues, right? What tools do we rely on, and what skill sets do we need? So, for example, the skill sets that project managers need today relate very strongly to the ability to convince, the ability to get buy-in, the ability to lead your peers, right? The ability to convince. All this has always been important, obviously, but today it becomes key skill set, right? A project manager today is completely useless unless they are able to convince their peers to collaborate. So this is the type of evolution that I am seeing, and this, of course, is in parallel with the evolution of corporations and what corporate structures we work with. Corporate structures today are much more dynamic in a way, where certainly accountability is still top down, right? Like as it always has been. But decision making is not top down any longer. If we go back to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s in corporations, both accountability and decision making were top down.
Control center, decision.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Right. Today, while accountability definitely is still top down, and hopefully that's how it stays, otherwise you have a disintegration of an organization. But decision making is much more distributed, and this is very obvious in a normal matrix structure, right, where you have this type of dotted lines where decision making occurs. But today we are even going beyond that. We are moving to environments in which you have multiple dotted lines, and sometimes decision making aligns more with leadership skill sets than with dotted lines at all. So the ability of a project manager to lead the unleadable, to lead the peers, to lead upwards becomes fundamental. Right?
Do you also see, sorry to interrupt you, but do you also see that concept of servant leader? Because you mentioned agile, you mentioned different things, and one of the emphasis is the servant leader, right? Is
Right.
not that on the top, and actually is the person who is. You put the pyramid upside down, and you have actually the leadership helping in facilitating the rest of the organization. Would that be aligned with what you're seeing?
Servant leadership is definitely very important. It's been around a while, right? So this has not emerged because of agility, right? The servant leadership has been around for a while. Clearly, in an agile structure, especially certain roles, such as an agile coach, are invited to use servant leadership. And yes, you're right. The aspect of servant leadership, or rather, servant leadership covers several aspects which are aligned with what I was saying. The ability to lead without a direct authority and things like that, right? However, do keep in mind that servant leadership is actually most valuable in specific context. So if you are in a context in which you are leading a team of experts, for example, right? In that case, servant leadership and a more analytical form of leadership, where the leader is more of a facilitator, is ideal. Right? So servant leadership is really ideal in specific contexts.
Got it.
And for sure, most agile approaches tend to be best adapted to very similar contexts, which is why we see the two coming together. Right? But project management is more than just that. Let me give you an example, Leon. If you are running a project in a completely new environment, they take you and they drop you into the middle of whatever, Inner Mongolia, and now you need to lead a team of people who have never been there, who don't know you, you don't know them, and now you need to get everybody in line, get your ducks in a row, and start delivering results. In this type of situation, what do you servant leader? You need to be able to bring in that more traditional driver form of collaboration to get the boat moving, to get the ball rolling. Once the ball is rolling, you can start bringing in other skill sets, right? But until there isn't movement, there is no ability to change, and there is no ability to steer towards a goal. So as a team leader, you need to recognize the situation and get the boat moving in order to be able then to steer it. If the boat doesn't move, you can't steer it. Right? So project management also relates a lot to the capacity of a project manager to recognize the context and adapt the right leadership form to the context in which they are working. Right?
And I want to explore something that you mentioned a few times about the results, about the focus. And one thing that we notice is that I think in the past, and I think we've been around for a while already, so we can relate to that. The project manager was evaluated by how well they actually manage the project within the budget, the deadline, client get whatever requirements and etc., which was a focus on project management, right? And that is shifting to project success, not the management of the project, but the success of the project once it is delivered.
Absolutely.
Right? So, can you elaborate a little bit more how important that shift is?
Yeah.
Because that shift happened some time ago,
right?
And the focus is on results. It's not about how you did it, which methodology you use, even though it's important, but it's about the final result, right?
That's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. And we are both very well acquainted with Kirshner's approaches, right? And he's been talking about value in this sense since 25 years, right?
Oh yes, yeah, exactly.
So in a way, there's a thing that at least I like to put it in these terms, which is what I call leadership from the future. So in a way, when we as project managers think about our project, we what do? We say, well, what type of methodology do I need to put in place in order to deliver my deliverables, right? And then we hope that these deliverables actually create the right outcome for the business, and we hope that this outcome then delivers the right benefits to the business, and so on and so on. But that's like this vague hope that later on things will go fine, right? And we feel that our responsibility is, whoa, did I get the methodology right for this deliverable, right?
Yeah.
Instead, in reality, we need to turn it around, right? We need to lead from the future. We need to put ourselves into the position of the business objectives that we are aiming for, and from there turn around and say, good, in order to meet those business objectives, what are the benefits that we need to deliver? What is the value that needs to be delivered? And therefore, what does it look like? What are the deliverables that best will facilitate that value? And at that point, we can start worrying about the methodology that will create those, right? But it's actually the opposite of what we very often do, right?
Yeah.
We need to start from the future and look back towards our present in order to recognize all the obstacles that we will be having along the way, right?
Max, I love leading from the future. I love that. I think you have to take this sentence here and leading from the future. I think explains everything that you.
Well, I'm not the first one to use this, right? It's been around with different interpretations for a while, right?
That was very nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your experience here. Not only managing projects in all kind of sizes, different industries, but you actually had a chance to train, to prepare thousands of project managers worldwide, right? During this journey, what patterns do you see that you identify in how that training for new project managers must change to adjust to today? So two questions in one, right? What patterns you see when you're doing the training, and what do you recommend for our viewers and listeners who are starting their career? They want to be better in project management. They're thinking about getting or certified or whatever it is. What would you say?
It's a very interesting point that you make. What patterns are there? I have the impression, and now, I'm not the youngest chicken around. My impression is that the patterns have changed. That what is valid today when we think of how, in particular, we are both interested mainly in project managers, but I think this is true beyond that, right? This must be true also within adult learning in general.
Okay, yeah.
and who knows, maybe even for younger, right? I don't know about that, but I have the impression that a lot has changed. And it used to be, for example, when I started this career in which I was also training a lot. We are talking now about 20 years ago. It used to be that a class was a reasonably successful way to deploy learning. The equilibrium between the amount of knowledge that we wanted to share and the time we had in class was more or less working, and therefore we could do also a lot of practice, a lot of exercises, right? But also the attention spans that we were working with were adequate to that format, to that way of working, right? So we would be able to put enough theory onto the plate in order to then make an exercise meaningful and worthwhile doing. Right? So there was an equilibrium between the time companies were ready and professionals were ready to dedicate to the learning environment, the amount of theory that we wanted, the amount of knowledge that we wanted to share, and the attention spans that were available in the individuals. Today, I have the impression that there's quite a big difference. First of all, companies are not ready to dedicate time to training. So we've been compressed. The same amount of training that we would have wanted to do in 5 days is now to be done in half a day or in 2 days.
Yeah.
So that already puts a paid to that approach. Secondly, people don't care about, tell me about project management. There is much more this specific attention to how do I fix this problem? How do I fix this other problem? And so
go straight to the practice.
Straight to what I need now, right? Mm-hmm. And if you start by explaining the big picture and start saying, look, your problem comes because you are embedded in a broader structure. And this is why you ended up having this problem. Very often you lose half the class. Mm-hmm. Not to mention, most of the time you're not even sitting in front of the class, but you're like we are now, right? In a virtual environment. Yeah, right? Except that you might have 15, 20 different participants. So the attention spans also are shorter, right? If you can get a message across in 30 seconds, all good. If you need 5 or 6 minutes for that, it doesn't work anymore. So there is a very big difference in how we relate to each other. And this is not because we've all become less attentive. It's because we have more information that is coming from many more sources at the same time. And so we end up having this much broader tube of information coming, and therefore, of course, we can only take a smaller slice of it, right? And so we need to, as people who are interested in helping the development of our professionals, we need to learn to adapt to this. So, for example, learning structured in classes, whether virtual or not, has a very limited success ratio. Mm-hmm. The fact that I talk to you about a topic for 3 days, it needs to be a very specific sector of your job for it to actually work. Right? Instead, if I am able to coach you through your real work, and I'm able to create a relationship with you for which I earn your trust, and because of the trust that I have earned, you are ready to give me a broader span of that attention spectrum that you have available, in that case, we can be successful. but we need to accompany professionals throughout their life. So I see much more future for a coaching type
Coaching
of
than
training
regular
and of
training.
traditional training. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, it
And
makes sense. It makes sense. Yes.
yeah. And this of course means that we need to create, or years ago I remember, Leon, we were all talking about it. The we had worked on a blended approach to learning, right, where throughout the arch of a year, 2 years, you have this team of people that you go through, and you would have different types of approaches throughout. You'd have maybe a 2-day class, but then you'd have webinars, you'd share articles, you'd have discussion forums. So you'd have that approach was the right direction for them. Today, we need to power boost that.
Yeah.
So even that needs to be broken down into a constant collaboration with the project, with the professionals, with the project managers, and obviously the tools that we have available are the ones that we need to take advantage of, right? So the development of AI in this will certainly help, but it's only one tool, right? It's not enough by itself. AI can be an ingredient within a process flow, but the process flow is not AI. The process flow is a much broader, much more extensive, much more elaborated process flow, which will include a lot of things and also use the support of certain more advanced tools that we have access to today. Am I answering your question, Leon?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And you just brought something here related to AI. So we all know that AI is transforming industries and business everywhere, right? Specifically on the project management side, how do you see AI's impact on the project management side? And then after that, I would like to know a little bit more about what you're doing with your company to help that. But let's start with the impact. What is the impact for project managers? So I'm a project manager. What's the impact for AI on my day-by-day project, program, portfolio management? I'm trying to get initiatives done. What's the impact?
Yeah. Well, at the moment, the impact is that you get a lot of hassle from everybody telling you should be using it. Instead, you're probably not, right? So, so I am surprised, Leon, to notice how little actually on the shop floor AI is being adopted.
That's very interesting. Let me just say, I heard the same thing from Ricardo Vargas, Antonio Nieto Rodriguez, and several other people that are deeply involved in AI. I think you are 100% aligned with that. They see the rate of adoption is very, very slow compared with all the benefits, right? So tell us more about that.
Yeah. It is reasonable to assume, but who knows if I'm right, that there will be a steep increase in this rate of assumption, right? That we are still now at the beginning, and so we don't see, we would say, oh wow, there are all those cool things, I'd expect everybody to be using it, and instead it grows slowly. However, I do expect that it becomes a little bit like an avalanche, right? That at the beginning
it's inflection point, you mean?
Right, that there will be an inflection point in which then we will see an acceleration. Probably an acceleration, a very steep acceleration, maybe less so than you or I imagine, right? But who knows? But I do expect that this acceleration will come in the coming few years. But today I see very, very slow adoption rates. However, you're asking something more specifically, and you are asking how can project managers take advantage, right? What is it that in what way will this impact their profession? Well, it depends very much on who is going to be running the change. We must be conscious of the fact that we own these change processes. They don't happen to us. We are not passive little branch that is floating down the river, right? The changes that are occurring are the ones that we create. So it depends very much on what we choose as a profession.
Very interesting.
So if we just let things happen, the most likely thing is that the bean counters are going to decide. And so the cheapest possible approach is what is going to be successful. But the professionals also have a role to play. So if professionals accept the fact that these tools can enhance our capacity to deliver results, enhance our capacity to deliver quality, in that case, then we can make sure that project management as a role becomes more and more crucial. You were earlier, Leon, mentioning how important is it that a project manager understands not only how to reach the deliverables, but how those deliverables will then be embedded within the corporate value chain of the benefit that we are generating, right?
Yeah.
That is, for example, a key element in here. A project manager who is taking advantage of AI tools can not only use natural language processing in order to summarize meetings, but can also use machine learning in order to understand trends and evaluate the consequences of risks and use historical databases in order to understand better what are the possible future developments of whatever actions you're taking, or of what lead times may be developing, or etc. So the point is, no matter what the topic is that you're looking at, it is very much a question of how much ownership do we want to take on our shoulders of what our profession becomes. Does our profession become load the letter, distribute the letter, share it with management? In that case, that's what's going to happen, and we'll have AI tools that do the rest. Quality will be very low, everything will be very cheap. Yeah. Or do we want to become a profession of people who use AI in order to power boost the value that we generate? In that case, we will be more expensive, but we'll be generating higher and higher degrees of value. So it really depends on who we are and who we want to be in the future.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to hear, because I had a conversation with Dr. Elisa Farrell. She's a futurist.
Yes,
and she was sharing that the future is not something that you wait for. You actually can make the future based on your view, and then you have the action very much aligned with what you're saying. It's not just waiting there, but actually how we're going to use to impact our projects. And then I'm going to segue to your company. So PMR2 is your company, and it's dedicated to help project managers on their day-by-day job.
That's right.
And I know you're building an app called Aurelius. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because there are tools out there that promise to help, and etc. How is Aurelius going to help to solve problems for project managers? How is different from the traditional platforms or courses or any of those stuff?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Leon, for bringing it up. I definitely hope this is definitely in line with what we've been discussing. So we started. Maybe you still remember the good old Gus, the the PMP preparation tool, right? There we embedded AI into it, and it's already selling nicely since over a year. IIL deployed it, and so on. Now the next step is beyond, of course, improving on the PMP prep stuff, which is also useful, also going on. But this new tool that we're building, Aurelius, as you mentioned, has a double role, if you want. The basic idea is I'm a project manager, I have a career in front of me, and I want to make sure that I'm not only doing my work today properly, but I am constantly improving as I proceed. So it's not just that I can deliver more value because some AI thing is doing some magic for me, but that I am improving as a professional, and thereby I am able to leverage more and more value from whatever tool I use.
And when you say improving, you mean improving your skills, your competencies, your knowledge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So this tool essentially will be blending the two worlds together. The learning and competence tools and the real world of the project manager. Right? So the idea is you work on your real project in it. So you'll be loading your project charter, your project plans into it, and so on. And you are using your normal Jira or whatever you're using to run your projects. But the tool helps you to say, hey, in this context, you have these difficult stakeholders. Have you considered these stakeholder management strategies? Have you considered using these tools in order to find additional risks? Have you considered, and so it's blending the learning with the work that you're doing. And as you grow, it knows better and better what your level is, so what tools you're already accustomed to using, and what more advanced tools you might want to look into, and starts bringing them into the fold. And so the idea is that this way you can go through your whole life continuing to learn all the way until you're super mega director.
So you're actually connecting with what you said. It's about the difference between the traditional learning and the coaching. So what you're saying is that Aurelius will be your expert coach that's going to follow you, is going to adjust to the project and give you the a direction and provide you direction. So based on that specific project and your specific needs. So what Aurelius is going to provide to Max is different what's going to provide to Leon, which is different what's going to provide to John and Mary and everybody else, and based on their projects. And you're also saying that he's going to learn from that interaction.
Yes,
right?
That's exactly right. And the idea is that it accompanies you, but if you want to be accompanied, or if you want for, say, the next 2 months or the next 6 months, I have a mentor, a human mentor. The human mentor can also log into Aurelius, and now the three together are collaborating. So the human mentor can also tell what type of tools you need to develop, what type of... so there is then an interaction also between the different approaches.
So are you also saying that Aurelius will have access to my historical information from my organization, so he knows what tool we are using, what approaches, and things like that? So each organization might have specific information that Aurelius can grab to adjust to that environment?
Yes, that's a very delicate topic, and which I assume is why you're bringing it up, of course, right? Ideally, yes, right? The more information Aurelius has, the better it's able to help the project manager. In practice, there needs to be an agreement between what information do you share, in what format do I hold it, where do I hold it, and how do we discuss about it, right? And so there are several different variants on this possibility, right? The basic is, of course, AWS servers with all the security that's in them and so on.
Things,
however, there are also other possibilities. For example, it can stay on your own devices without going on to, or it can stay only within your corporate environment and don't go out of there. It makes it, of course, all a little bit more complicated, but that's the idea. My impression, Leon, is that we are going down a route that is a bit similar to when we started with all the cloud. Remember at the beginning when the first cloud-based storages came out, and I said, "Oh, I'm not crazy.
I'm not going to put anything there." Exactly.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yes.
And now, of course, everybody's, just put it on the cloud. I think we are going down a similar path there. But this is only possible because the cloud infrastructure became more and more secure. Right? Mm-hmm. And so a little bit it's similar here. We do need to prove that our infrastructure is as secure as it is possible to be.
So another question here is about how organizations can implement AI. There is a lot of templates and frameworks out there, a lot of discussion if that's really valid, if it's going to bring the value. You see statistics here and there. Organizations say, well, yeah, but we're not able to implement. Or we were able to implement, we didn't see the results. In your experience, what do we need to do? What organizations need to do in a few simple steps on an overview to better accelerate their AI adoption? And you and I, we wrote a paper about that. We presented about that. But I wanted to see your perspective because, again, that was several months back. And AI works so fast that we have to update. So give us your view right now. What our viewers and listeners, maybe not the entire organization, but that department wants to improve their use of AI, what is that they have to look for?
So last time when we discussed this, one of the most important things that we said, of course, was experiment with it, right? Start getting comfortable with it. And I think that is still a very important point. Then we discussed about the different stages of maturity growth throughout the AI. And I invite your listeners to have a look at your maturity growth structure that we worked on. And I think that all still stands. It's all very important. Within that frame, however, I think we are now in a slightly different place than we were a year ago or whenever it was that we had our first conversation. In the sense that it is more and more obvious today that AI adoption is about not only enhancing your corporate processes, but it really means a substantial change in your corporate processes. So we used to look at AI adoption as, oh, you have these steps in your process, now which ones can we swap out with AI, right? Mm-hmm. It's becoming more and more obvious that that is not the case, right? That what we are actually talking about is changing the corporate processes. Where before we had a series of steps, today we are accumulating them, we are bypassing them, we are creating different pathways to our goals. Right? That is my impression. So really, when you're thinking about AI adoption, think about it holistically. It's about adapting your corporate environment to these new opportunities rather than simply taking these little wins here and there.
Got it.
Does this make sense to you, Leon?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes sense. The holistic view, I think, is the secret, because sometimes people get lost on the little things and they don't see the big picture. So what you're saying is, okay, let's get out. Let's look to the big picture and see where the benefit of AI is for organizations. So thank you for sharing that. And by the way, we have to have a part 2 of our conversation, right? So I think I'm going to let you go. But before I let you go, I want to ask you 2 things. First, Share one or two books that were instrumental for you since the last time we talked, or can be something that is still relevant for you, that you would like to recommend to our viewers, that or listeners here.
There is one that I made a note for myself here. Is in the HBR collection, right? The Harvard Business Review collection, called AI for Leaders. I found there's quite an interesting collection of different input, right? That relates to AI and business strategy, and is very tightly connected to the things that we discussed here today. So that I warmly recommend if you have access to it. That definitely have a look at it. And another one that I enjoyed is by a guy called Nick Bostrom. Maybe you've heard about him.
Yes.
Yeah. Superintelligence: Paths, Dangers, Strategies. Let's freak out a little. Have a look at what risks we're heading for.
Very nice, and yeah, I agree with you. You can get freaked out. I read recently this book by Suleiman on the new wave and etc. Yeah, it's always nice to have the balance between this optimistic and the pessimistic, or what we need to be careful about, and etc. Right. So yes, final thoughts for our viewers and listeners here today.
Be careful, look ahead, but don't be beaten down. Don't remember that you own your future. Your future will be what you build. So collaborate and bring the future that you think is best to become a reality, right? Just by sitting around, it's not going to happen. You sit around, somebody else's best future is going to materialize.
Max, once again, thank you so much. For everybody here, PMR2, you can check him out on LinkedIn as well. We're going to have part two. We have much more to talk about. Let's give a few more months. New things are going to happen. We're going to have more stuff to talk. So once again, thank you so much. It was great.
Thank you, Leon.